If you have your Bibles, you can go with me to the book of 1 Kings, chapter 19. I'm going to begin reading in verse 1. I'm going to kind of pick up a little bit maybe where we left off, but kind of go in a little bit of direction. We're going to stick with Elijah, but we're going to move into a little bit of a different direction with it. Last week we talked about how little is much with God. When you put it in His hands, you think sometimes that maybe what you have isn't very much or it's not enough to get you through. But when you put it in the hands of God and when you trust Him, He has a way of making it sustainable, making it to where it stretches and it'll see you through no matter what you're going through. God takes a little and He can turn it into a lot. Amen? God takes a little and He can turn it into a lot, but you got to give it to Him first. So here in 1 Kings chapter 19, I'm going to be reading in verse 1. It says, "And Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and withal how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a message unto Elisha, saying, So let the gods do to me, and more also, if I make not thy life as the life of one of them," referring to the prophets who had been slain, "one of them to tomorrow about this time." And when he saw that, he arose and went for his life, and came to Beersheba, which belongeth to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under the juniper tree, and as he requested for himself that he might die, and said, "It is enough. Now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am not better than my fathers." Elijah found himself sitting under the tree, thinking to himself, "Now take me, God. I've done all that I can do. I'm at the end of my rope. I'm on the run. Take me." What a tough place he was in. But I want to talk to you a little bit today for a few moments on just dealing with fatigue. Dealing with fatigue. You can be seated. Dealing with fatigue. We pick up here on Elijah, and last week we talked kind of about the beginning of Elijah. It's kind of like his ministry, so you would speak. They would say it nowadays, I guess. It began in the previous chapter as we saw Elijah go before the king Ahab, and he speaks to Ahab, and he says there's coming a drought, and it's going to be a drought for an X amount of time. He says, in fact, it's going to be a drought until I say that the drought is over. And Elijah goes through that, and he goes and he lives through the drought. He makes it through the drought. Yeah, would you give me a water? He makes it through the drought, and he ends up, God sends him to a brook, and he lives off the brook for a little bit, but then the drought gets so bad that the brook begins to disappear, so God moves him again, and thank you, and he finds himself with a widow who is at the end of her rope. She says that she's out. She's just got a little bit of meal and a little bit of oil in the cruse, and she's going to bake her and her son a cake. And she says, "That's it. I'm done. I'm through. I've made it as far as I can make it. We've done everything that we can." And then all of a sudden, Elijah speaks into her life, and he speaks almost prophetically by saying, "Go and make me a cake first, and then make yourself a cake." And it's amazing because she had already told him that there's only enough for one cake. And here's this prophet saying, "Make more." Right then, he spoke into her life. He spoke increase into her life. So right then, he encounters someone who's at the end of their rope, and he's got faith to speak into their life. And so he goes on, and he stays with the lady for a while, and he ends up God uses him to raise up her son a little bit further down the road who was dead. And then it comes to the point where he prays, God send the rain, and God sends the rain. And I don't know about you, but God's really using him. He should be, for all intents and purposes, he should be excited. He's had a few bumps here and there, but really God has done some great things through him. God has provided for him through the drought. God has sent him and used him to raise up the dead through his own prayer. God has sustained him. He spoke to the king. He's spoken in front of the king. And then he finds himself on Mount Carmel with the showdown between all the prophets of Baal. And he calls fire down from heaven. Now, I don't know about you, but Elijah from the onset, it seems like he's got it going on. Everything's working out for him. I mean, I don't know about you, but sometimes it just feels like things don't work out for me. I mean, I go out and I can say, God, send fire down from heaven, and it might start raining. Or at least sometimes it feels like that. Have you ever been in a place in your life where it just feels like, man, everything that you do, it just seems like it's not working out? No matter how hard you try, no matter how much you put into it, it just doesn't happen the way that you want it to happen. Well, that wasn't what was going on with Elijah. Everything was going great. I mean, yeah, the brook dried up, but the ravens didn't stop bringing him food. Yeah, the widow's son died, but God brought him back up. God has an amazing way of taking crazy things and turning them into miracles. I mean, we'd all be sad if Caleb just killed over and died. We would be greatly sad. But then we went over there and when we prayed for him and God raised him back up, we'd go immediately from being sad to rejoicing and thanking God and saying how amazing God is. Now I pray that never happens. God, I believe you, Lord. You don't have to prove that to me. I believe that you can raise from the dead. You don't have to prove that one to me. I'll take your word for it because I know your word's true. But man, Elijah, things are just going really good for Elijah. He encounters the prophets of Baal and he stands up against all the crazy things that they've been doing, and he stands in the midst of them and he mocks their God. He says, oh, he might be asleep, or maybe he's gone on a business trip or whatever, and they make their altar and they go through all their crazy shenanigans. Isn't it crazy? Isn't it crazy about the things that people will do for the world? When you really think about it, some of the things that people will go out of their way to do for the world or to do for a false god, but it's hard to get people to come to church on Sunday. It's hard to get people to stop down for a little bit of prayer time or to take time out of their busy schedule just to read a little bit. But they don't have any problem making time for a football game. They don't have any time clearing their schedule for a party or a get-together or a celebration. But when it comes to giving back to the Creator, we kind of, well, I'm a little busy. I got to check my schedule. The kids are acting up, or maybe the gas tank's a little bit low. But I want to tell you that God is looking for some people that are willing to stand up in the midst when everybody else is doing crazy things, when everybody else is doing everything that they can for the world or doing everything that they can for a false god. The Lord, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords is looking for a people that are going to stand up in the midst of all that chaos and spiritually call down the fires from heaven and say, God is the God. He said, you called to your God, now let me call to the God. Man, that was powerful. That's one of my favorite things that's ever said in the Bible. He said, you've done all that you can do for your God. Now let me call upon the God, the one true God, the Creator, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the Jehovah Jireh, my provider, everything, all of those things. God is the healer. He is the mighty counselor. He is the Prince of Peace. He is the source of my joy and of my happiness. All good and perfect gifts come from the Lord. He's amazing. He's an amazing God. Why don't we have more time for him? But so anyway, so Elijah's really on a roll, and he steps off from that great display of God's power in the mountain. And Ahab, Ahab, he was kind of in charge. He was like the king there. He runs and he tells his wife Jezebel all that Elijah had done. And of course, Jezebel being the prime person that is trying to bring all of the false idol worship into Israel, she was a princess of a pagan worshiper, and she's infuriated. She's infuriated. It's amazing that there was over 850, 950, I want to say, prophets there on that mountain, but there was only one prophet of God. It's hard to find a real man of God. It's hard to find a real man of God or a real woman of God. Someone who's not compromised. someone who's not out to get your back pocketbook, someone who's not out to build their own kingdom, but someone who's out to build the kingdom of God. When you find someone in your life that's out to build the kingdom of God, get beside them and help them. I'm not saying that you've got to go to their church or you've got to give your tithes to them, but what I am saying is that you ought to pray for them. You ought to cover them. You ought to call them up and tell them, hey, I'm praying for you. Hey, I'm with you. Hey, I've got your back. Hey, I know things are tough, but I'm with you. Don't ever underestimate the power of encouragement. We talked a little bit about the men's meeting yesterday. We've got to encourage one another because sooner or later, fatigue of life is going to set in. We can all agree that, I mean, don't even look at your spiritual life. Just look at your normal life, your everyday life. You get up, you go to your job, you accept the responsibilities that come with your job, you accept the responsibilities that come with being a husband or a wife or a student. And there's all this pressure that comes with it. The more responsibilities that you take on, the more the pressure comes. And I've been trying to get Caleb ready because he just started the 6th grade. And I've been telling him, I've been saying, Caleb, you're in the 6th grade now, and it might seem easy, but it's the more you advance, the harder it's going to be. The more God takes you, the higher God takes you in ministry, the more the pressure is going to be. And the more that the enemy is going to try to fight against you. So you've got to be careful, and you've got to take notice in your life. When do you come to points of fatigue? I mean, every day. I mean, I don't know about you, but by the end of the week, sometimes, I can't complain about my job. My job's relatively low stress, but some of you in here have high stress jobs. Neil has a high stress job. Tamara works with 30 different monsters every week. So those can be high stress. Well, Andrea, she's a supervisor, and she's got to deal with everybody else's problems. So with that comes pressure, and with that comes eventual fatigue, because you just get worn out, you get tired of doing it. And you know, our way of kind of just relaxing, we want to go home, we just want to sit on the couch, we want to spend time with our family. And sometimes you've got to just almost like veg out, you know, just have that little bit of moment where you're just, breathe, take the deep breath, in and out, in through the nose, out through the mouth. But we expect all that, right? We expect all that from the world. We're working in the world, we're living in the world, we're in the world, but we're not of the world, right? You expect turmoil to come from different things like that. But what do when you're like Elijah and everything is going great, and then all of a sudden something happens in ministry, or in your ministry, or in your work for God, or in your relationship and living with God, or in your church, that all of a sudden it comes by and it throws you for a complete loop. And all of a sudden, the fatigue that you're experiencing, the source of the fatigue isn't from the world, because you expected that. It's not from the crazy people that you work with, because you expected that. They're crazy, right? Now you're getting it from the church. You said, Lord, I'm doing the right thing. I went everywhere that you wanted me to go. I said what you wanted me to say. I sang the songs that you wanted me to sing. I played the songs that you wanted me to sing. I preached the message that you want me to preach. But yet I still feel this fatigue setting in, this tired. I'm getting tired of carrying the burden. Lord, I know you said you'd be my strength, but all of a sudden I feel like my strength is gone. And then it's in those moments that it seems like that's when someone comes up to you and they say something stupid, right? Right? Come on, let's just be honest. Yeah. There's just a few of us in here, I can be honest, right? Someone comes along and they make you feel like they're taking you for granted, or they you know, you're already kind of feeling down on yourself, and someone comes up and then they got that little critique that, you know, well, if you know, Brother Don, if you just turned that down just a little bit, you know, maybe the people would be able, you know, if you didn't sing a little lower, you know, if you came just a little bit earlier to church, Andrea, you know, Caleb, if you stayed awake through the whole service, you know. Oh no, he's never slept. You know, but then all of a sudden that someone hits you, and it's hard to receive criticism just normally when you're at full strength. It's hard sometimes to receive criticism, especially when it's from someone that's, you know, when it doesn't come from that crazy lady at the end of the pew who always just says something that's weird. You can just discount that. But then all of a sudden it seems like it comes from someone that you really care about their opinion. I genuinely care what Neil thinks. If he came up to me after church and said, "You bombed it today," I would have cause for concern. I mean, seriously. But at the same time, if I'm in a state where, if I'm in a state where things are going well, and you know, I feel like I'm kind of, you know, quote unquote, on top of my game, and he comes and he criticizes me, yeah, it might hurt, but I can deal with it a little bit better, right? I can take it kind of in stride, and I can say, well, maybe that message just wasn't for Neil today. Maybe that song just wasn't for you. Because let me tell you something. For every one person that criticizes you in a church, there's 10 other people that are very thankful that you're there. And believe me, I've been in, you know, maybe some of you in here, I don't know, Don, I don't know how long you've been working in ministry, but I've been in ministry for about 12 or 15 years, and I've learned that people will come up to you and they'll criticize you, and it'll hit your heart, it'll hurt you, but you'll find out that just because one person criticizes you, there's about 10 or 15 other people out there that are thankful, and they're thankful for your ministry, and they thought that you did a wonderful job. The unfortunate thing is that those people, they stay back and be quiet usually, while the ones that have a problem tend to be the ones. You know, it's that old adage of the ones that yell the loudest, those are the ones that get hurt. I mean, I think we're experiencing that a little bit politically nowadays. Amen? Oh man, I should have got more amens than that. I'm going to check your voter card before you leave. No, I'm just kidding. But so Elijah, he all of a sudden, he's got Jezebel, and Jezebel sends this message to him, and she says, "Mark it down, bud, because of what you've done, I'm out to get you, and I'm going to make sure that you're dead." She said, "Mark my words, by this time tomorrow, I'm going to make you like you made all those prophets." Now, I want to take a few things. I want to really kind of look at Elijah's experience that he had on Mount Carmel, because we look at it and we celebrate it because it was a powerful act of boldness for Elijah to do what he did. In the midst of hundreds of people that, had they wanted to, they could have just overtaken him and killed him. But they didn't, because God's favor was on his life, and God was working through him. But here's what you have to be careful of in life. In ministry, Elijah confronted the prophets of Baal. All of the people that Jezebel had allowed into the country to infiltrate Israel and to cause them, well, you know, at the end of the day, it's their decision what God they worship. So it is on them. But at the same time, you know, influence is power sometimes. And so they brought in all those people to Egypt to try to influence Israel, and Israel, who had a knack for turning their back on God like a lot of us do today. And they did exactly that, and they accepted those prophets. But so anyway, that's a whole other message. So Elijah is facing the prophets, and he does his thing, and God uses him, fire down from heaven, it consumes, and they take out all the prophets. But when I really begin to think about what was going on up there, I begin to think about how so many times as ministry, as leaderships, or just as everyday people, think about it just trying to handle issues in your house. I started to really think about it, and I began to realize that Elijah, though what God used him to do on the mountain was amazing, and it should be celebrated, and it should be looked on as a heroic act of boldness, the reality was that what Elijah did was Elijah took out all of the symptoms. The false prophets were the symptoms of the issue that was going on in Israel. Follow me for a second here. They were the ones that were going out and trying to spread the word of the false gods. The enemy would like for you to spend all your time and all your energy fighting against the symptoms of the issues. See, Elijah stood up to the symptoms when he should have been standing up to the cause of the symptoms. What was the cause of the symptoms? The cause of this, well, I mean, you can go really deep. But in general, the cause of the symptoms was Jezebel. So Elijah used up a lot of energy taking and standing up to the prophets. So when it came time for him to stand up to Jezebel, who was the cause of all the prophets, he was tired. How many times in your life have you wasted so much energy trying to cure the symptoms and totally neglected the cause? You say, well, there's some things that go on in my life that just make me angry. And when I get angry, I say things that I don't mean. So I do my best to try to avoid things that will make me angry. And you work hard and you work hard in your life to avoid things that make you angry. When really God is saying, I'm not trying to remove the things that make you angry. I'm not trying to remove the things that make you depressed or make you upset. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to reach down into your heart and cause you to turn your attention to the cause, not the symptom. Getting depressed or getting upset or getting angry is a symptom of a deeper issue that maybe you haven't dealt with. You know, there are still some things today that I'll hear, you know, or maybe you'll hear, maybe you'll relate to this, that someone will say something and it'll kind of like strike up an old emotion. And you'll, you know, because we don't want to feel that emotion anymore. So we get protective and we'll back away. But God puts things in your life to bring those emotions out in order to expose the cause so that you can deal with the cause and not the symptom. Elijah went face to face with the symptoms and won that battle. But believe me, Jezebel could have opened up the gate and brought in 900 or 1,000 more prophets, just like she let those in. Elijah, and he did it eventually in his life, he stood up to her. But in this instance, when she steps out and she says, I'm going to take you out, Elijah is afraid. Elijah's afraid. What things in our lives are we afraid to deal with because of the pain that comes back up when we really start to face those things, those issues, those hurts, those wounds that we've picked up along the way? Because we've all got them. If you've lived this life, you've got some hurts. You've got some wounds. People have done some things to you, said some stuff to you. You've done some things to yourself probably. I know I have. That you got to forgive yourself. You got to forgive someone else. You got to forgive the person that did it. And God has a way of bringing those out. So Elijah took out the symptoms, and now he's facing Jezebel, and he runs and he flees because he's afraid. But you don't have to be, let me just encourage you for a moment, because you don't have to be afraid to face those hurts and those wounds. You don't have to be afraid to face the pain, to face that situation or that circumstance, because God is guiding you there. Romans 8:15 says, For ye have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear, but ye have received the spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father. When you gave your life to Christ, you now have an authority through sonship, through adoption, to look back at things that have taken place in your life and tell those situations, tell the cause of the symptoms that you're dealing with now, to speak to that cause and say, I am a new creature, I am a new man, I am a new woman, I do not have to fall to those symptoms, I do not have to fall to that cause, that hurt, that pain, that wound, whatever it was, that situation. God has forgiven me, and I have been free, because I have not been given again, I have not received the spirit of bondage. Is fear of dealing with an issue causing you to neglect it? Elijah, upon hearing what Jezebel said, could have stood up and said, oh no, maybe you don't know who I am. And maybe you don't know who my God is. And maybe you didn't hear did my God bring fire down on heaven just a few hours ago? Sometimes you've got to look the enemy in the face and remind who your God is, and remind who adopted you, and remind whose blood that you're washed in, and remind the enemy who went to the cross for you, who died for you, who rose again on the third day for you. When's the last time you did that? Or maybe you got afraid in your brain. Because that's exactly what Elijah did. He gets afraid and he runs. And he runs into the wilderness. He runs to Beersheba. And all of a sudden, he's run basically until he can't run any longer. And he's found him a tree. And he just stomps down in his fatigue, in his tiredness, his spiritual weariness. And that's a tough place to be in. Because that's when the enemy comes in and he starts whispering things in your ear. You're not, what are you doing? You're not good enough. You're not good enough anyway. You don't have any business leading praise and worship. You don't have any business playing that bass. You don't have any business preaching. You don't have any business witnessing to that person, telling them about the good things of God. Look at you. Elisha, the mighty prophet, calling fire down from heaven. Here you are, sitting under this tree, tired, begging God to die. What a joke. The mighty prophet. Come on, maybe I'm the only one that's ever felt like that. Just under the tree. And it's crazy how your mind works, because as you kind of begin to go through things and analyze, why am I where I'm at, and how did I end up under the tree when I was just by the brook, and amazing, and half ravens were bringing me food, and then there was that time when I was with the widow, and the mill and the barrel, it just kept coming and coming, and the oil, it never disappeared. And now I'm under the tree. You're under the tree because you've gotten to a place where fatigue has taken over. It's taken over you physically. It's taken over you spiritually. Never make a decision about your future based on temporary circumstances. Elijah sat under that tree and was ready to make a long-term decision based on temporary circumstances. He based his desire to die was based on the fact that he had Jezebel on his tail. He was tired. He had just gotten through running. He had just gotten through giving all that he had and praying that God would bring back the rain. He gave all that he had and standing up to the prophets of Baal. And now this battle has got him just thinking, I think I've had enough. And then this is the kicker here, because this is a tough one. This is tough. He says, I'm no better than my fathers. I'm no better than my fathers. The enemy came in and made him look back at maybe his family and say, you know what? Maybe they weren't living for God. We don't know much about it. We don't know anything really about Elijah's family or his past. But for him to sit there in that time, in that broken state, and to say, I'm just like my fathers. I mean, he could have been referring to Israel and all the times that they failed. He's looking at himself and he's thinking, I'm a failure. I'm a failure, man. Look at me. Look at where I'm at. God, just take me. Have you ever felt that way? Really, I'm a failure. And the reality is that you took one situation, one issue, one hardship, and you based your entire life, your entire ministry on that one thing. You said, this is a failure. I failed. I look at where I'm at, where you look at where you're at in ministry, and you think it's not the way that you thought it would turn out. And if you're not careful, because you've been working the pile so hard, fatigue is beginning to set in, you start to think, man, it's a failure. It's failure. What am I doing? What am I doing here? That's when the enemy starts telling you, you'd be better off back where you were. You'd be better off out at the bar. You'd be better off just not even giving anything over to God. You can go bury your sorrows in a bottle. You can bury your sorrows in a drug. Or you can deal with them and you can face them. There are so many people out there that are medicating themselves and telling themselves that, oh, I do it because it makes me feel good. You're dealing with a symptom when God is trying to get you to deal with the cause. And all those drugs, alcohol, all of those things, they're masking a symptom and allowing you to continue to carry the cause. When God said, you're free. You're free. You're free from your past. You're free from your failures. You're free from your mistakes. You're free from what people have done to you, from what people have said about you. You're free from labels. You're free from disappointment. You may be disappointed, but you don't have to stay that way. Timothy 1:6-7 says, wherefore I put thee in remembrance that thou stir up the gift of God which is in thee by the putting on of my hands. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Elijah's mind was not sound. For him to think that I'm no better than my fathers, I wish that I would die. His mind was not sound. His mind was not sound because his body was tired. Don't let your physical state cause you to make an incorrect assumption on where you're at spiritually. Just because you've got a chronic back problem doesn't mean that God is punishing you. Just because you had a health scare doesn't mean that God is dropping the hammer on you. Life happens. Life happens. Amen? Life happens. Man that is born of a woman, his days on earth are few and they are full of trouble. Things started off great for Elijah, but then they got rough. Things may have started out for you. You gave your life to Christ and things were going awesome, and then all of a sudden things are getting tough. Where are you going to be when things get tough? Are you going to run like Elijah? And yes, I feel okay criticizing Elijah. Because if God didn't want it in there, he wouldn't have wrote it. You know, that's one of the amazing things about the Bible. It gives us a look into, you know, if I was David, or if I was, you know, if I was trying to write a bestseller, maybe, or something, and all the things, there might have been some things that I might have omitted out of the Bible. I might have just skipped over the part where David killed Uriah. I might have just skipped over the part where Elijah found himself under the juniper tree. I would have spent more time on the good stuff. But God opens it up and he shows us all that everyone deals with humanity. And everyone deals with the flesh. And everyone deals with life just happening. The amazing thing about it was that Elijah's sitting under the tree, ready to go. And then all of a sudden God comes in. God sends an angel his way. No matter how far you feel like you've fallen, no matter how tough or heavy the burden may feel, you've never fallen too far that God is not ready to send someone your way to pick you up and to encourage you and to fill you back up. I was looking through Facebook and I saw something. It was one of those little meme things, and I thought of Alexis because she's just driving, and the guy's face is all like this, and you know how some of those things are. And it says, so what did you think? My gas tank runs on friendship? I mean, some people think that spiritually your gas tank runs on friendship. I mean, that was a physical thing, but you know, when they're good as long as you're giving. But when it's time to reciprocate, they have a way of finding the door. And if you're not careful, those kind of people will pull from you. And when you get to a place of fatigue, it'll drain you. And it'll drain you all the way down. That's why it's important to find a place to fill yourself back up. Let's stand. I don't know if this message was really for anyone today, but if anything, I hope that it helps you think about things a little bit different down the road. Just because things are tough, and you're tired, and you're weary from the journey, that doesn't mean that it's over right then. Elijah went on and did some more great things. Elijah went on and anointed Elisha. And his ministry carried on through in a double portion form to Elisha. Elisha would have never happened if Elijah would have stayed under that juniper tree. But he chose, once God began to get underneath him and bring him back. And the amazing thing, God raised him up, sent him right back where he ran from. He said, no, Elijah, you're going to face what you ran from. Because I am with you and I am fighting the battles for you. And if God is for you, who can be against you? Hallelujah. Glory to God. As they sing in closing, I wonder if we can just all bind together and ask God to strengthen us. Strengthen us on the journey. Strengthen us when we're weary, when we're tired, when we're ready to fall under that juniper tree and throw in the towel. God is saying, carry the burdens and keep going forward. You are all that I see. Still within me, the worries of mine. Here my heart is at. I draw near, I draw near to you, God. You draw near, you draw near to me. I draw near, I draw near to you. God came to Elijah 2 times. And he said 2 very simple things. Get up and eat. Get up and eat. In other words, take of the strength, Elijah, that I have for you. Take of the encouragement that I have for you. Get up and eat. You may feel like you're close to the end, but I'm telling you today what God is saying. He's saying, get up and eat. Get up and get back on the horse. Get back under the burden. Get back under the mantle and walk in the ministry, in the things that God has called you to do. Get up and eat. And he closed it out. God said, what are you doing here, Elijah? What are you doing here? 2 times God said, get up and eat. And he comes back to him a 3rd time. And he says, why are you still here? I don't ever want to hear those words from God. But I want to get up. And I want to carry on. I want to move forward in the strength that God has given us. Stir up the gifts inside of us, Lord. Stir up the gifts. Stir up strength. God, you said that when we're weak, that you'd be strong. And I'm leaning on that promise today. We are leaning on your promise. Feed us, God, when we feel like we're starving and we're tired. God, I'm not going to make a permanent decision on temporary circumstances, because I know that you're not done. I know that you've only begun. And I might feel tired and weary from the journey. I might feel tired and weary from running from that thing that you've been trying to get me to face. But today I'm saying, God, I'm ready. I'm ready to stand up to the cause. I'm ready to stand up to the calling. I'm ready to stand up to what you're putting before me. God, right now I pray over every person in this building, God, that you would encourage them to stand up and to walk in the power and the anointing, God, that you are calling them to walk in. Strengthen them, Lord. Move upon them in a special way. God, let them know that you're still with them, that they're on the right path, that they're walking in the right direction. And God, if they're not walking in the right direction, I pray, God, that you open up their eyes and open up their spirit and show them, God, the right way. God, I make up a hedge right now upon every family. And I pray that peace be with them and strength be with them. When life happens, God, let them lean on you and not on their own understanding. But God, we're going to look to you as a family of believers, as the true church. We're decreeing victory over the cause, victory over weariness, victory over fatigue, victory over doubt, victory over disappointment. Because we live victorious through you. In Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.